We know that these images of starvation and horror are not an accident. They are there by design. What I want you to remember is that the design didn't start with Netanyahu. The starvation of Gaza didn't start in March. It started in 2006, and all of the outraged politicians that in the West are trying to pretend that they care about this, in the UK, in France, in Germany, in Canada, know this. And the reason why they, and some of the people who have been recently converted to the cause of the Palestinian survival, because the horror has become too evident to ignore and they want to salvage their reputations. It's because they wanted to believe that Israel is salvageable, that what's happening is just interpersonal rather than systemic. The elections of 2006 that were democratically held and in which Hamas won by a considerable majority is usually used by genocide apologists as a justification for the harm that they carry out. Alongside the debunked assertion that I see pop up every once in a while that Israel actually left Gaza. As you know, when you control the air, the access through land, and the access through water, you're not leaving, you're incarcerating. Israel banned exports and travel, limited Gaza's access to electricity, to fuel, to construction materials. But their main goal was to restrict Gazans' access to food. There is a quote that is attributed to Dov Weisglass, an Israeli politician, that the idea was to put Palestinians on a diet, but not let them starve. It won't surprise you that he now denies saying that. The Israeli strategy was actually outlined in a document of 2008 called Red Lines. This document was released after a campaign from the Israeli human rights organizations Gisha. The plan included stopping Gazans from fishing, not allowing to get agricultural inputs or eggs for breeding, among other things to make them food dependent, and reducing their calorie input to a specific number, 2,279 calories per person, just enough to maintain people above the threshold of starvation, just above the humanitarian crisis threshold. And when this happened, Netanyahu and his cronies had not been in government. This was a coalition of parties that included the Labour Party in Israel, the one that Yair Golan is trying to revive. The objective of this starvation was to make sure that scenes like this happen now and are projected in screens across the world, to try to portray Palestinians as savages. Palestinians were put in a pressure cooker as a counterinsurgency tactic to make sure that they reacted violently against the oppression that they were living under, so that Israelis had an excuse to portray them as savages to the Western world and then proceed to do what they're doing nowadays. And all of the governments finding concern in the Western world knew this. They knew that the moment that the Israeli army stepped in Gaza, starvation was a possibility, because they were always just a limit above starvation. Unfortunately for them, the very same apps that they use to increase our dysfunctions allow us to share information to be able to identify this for what it is. Don't be fooled.